My husband died 5 years ago. Every single month, I sent $200 to my in-laws to pay off a debt. One day, my neighbor from the floor below told me, "Stop sending the money and look at the security camera." The next day, I reviewed the footage. The scene that unfolded before me left me frozen. The smell of peeling plaster mixed with the sour funk of drains that hadn't been cleaned in years hit me the moment I turned off the engine of my old car at the foot of the building. This old brick tenement had survived in the heart of Chicago for more than 70 years, just as worn out and exhausted as the people slowly wasting away inside it. I locked my burgundy sedan near the corner, right where a faded patch of red paint marked the spot it had occupied for the last 5 years. Today was the 5th of the month, the day I paid a dead man's debt. My name is Kara Miller. I was 32 years old, a widow, and according to my late husband's family, still responsible for a financial obligation that never seemed to shrink no matter how faithfully I paid it. I stood for a moment beside the car, keys still in my hand, staring at the building like it might speak back to me. The windows looked like tired eyes. The fire escape rattled in the wind. Somewhere inside, a television blared a daytime talk show, the laughter canned and hollow. 5 years. 60 payments a year. $12,000. I had never missed a single month. When Evan died, the debt was explained to me gently, almost apologetically. Hospital bills, a private loan, a favor from family. His mother, Linda, cried on the phone so hard I could barely understand her words. His father stayed silent in the background, occasionally clearing his throat like he was choking on something he couldn't spit out. "Just until it's paid off," Linda had said. "Evan would have wanted that." Evan would have wanted a lot of things. Most of them didn't include me slowly drowning alone. I climbed the stairs to my apartment on the 3rd floor, each step complaining under my weight. The hallway smelled like old carpet and fried oil. Paint curled off the walls like dead skin. My neighbor's door, apartment 2B, was cracked open, just enough for a pair of sharp eyes to watch me pass. That was Mrs. Donnelly. She was in her late 60s, bones sharp as angles, hair always pulled back too tight. We had never been close, but grief has a way of making strangers familiar. She had started bringing me soup not long after Evan's funeral. Not out of kindness, I realized later, but out of observation. She saw everything. "Kara," she called softly. I stopped. "Yes." She opened her door wider, leaning on the frame. "You paid them again today, didn't you?" My stomach tightened. "It's the 5th. That's not an answer. I sighed. "Yes, I paid them." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "How much is left?" "They say there's still a balance." "They always do," she muttered. I shifted my weight. "Mrs. Donnelly, I really can't." "Look at the camera," she interrupted. I frowned. "What camera?" "The one over the back stairwell. Management put it in last year. Points straight at the service entrance." I stared at her, confused. "Why would I?" "Just look," she said, her eyes hardened. "Then decide if you still want to be a good girl." She closed her door before I could ask another question. That night, sleep refused to come. Evan's face drifted in and out of my thoughts the way it always did when something felt wrong. The way he used to rub his thumb against my wrist when he was nervous. The crooked smile he gave me when he thought I was being dramatic. "You worry too much, Kara," he used to say. I rolled onto my side, staring at the glow of the streetlight bleeding through the blinds. My phone sat on the nightstand, screen dark, bank app still open from earlier. The transfer confirmation burned behind my eyelids. $200 sent. I hated how automatic it had become. The next morning, I called in sick to work. My job at the insurance office was stable, dull, and forgiving, especially when grief was involved. I hadn't told anyone there that I was still paying off Evan's debt. It felt embarrassing, like admitting I didn't know how to stop being loyal to someone who was gone. The building's security office was in the basement, wedged between the laundry room and a storage cage full of broken chairs. The manager, Rick, barely looked up when I knocked. "Camera footage," he repeated, scratching his beard. "Which date?" Yesterday, I said, around noon. He typed lazily, clicking through folders. Back stairwell right. Yes. The screen flickered, then stabilized. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. The image was grainy but clear enough. The metal door at the back of the building, the alley beyond it, puddles from last night's rain reflecting light. Then the door opened. A man stepped out. My breath caught. He was taller than Evan, broader in the shoulders. He wore a baseball cap pulled low and moved with casual confidence. Behind him, a woman followed, laughing, her hand brushing his arm. I leaned closer. The woman turned her head. It was Linda, my mother-in-law. Alive, healthy, smiling. I felt dizzy. Another figure appeared behind them, older, slower. Frank, Evan's father. They didn't look like people drowning in debt. They looked like people on their way to lunch. The timestamp showed the date. Yesterday. My hands began to shake. That's not possible, I whispered. Rick squinted. You know them. Yes, I said hoarsely. They told me they don't leave the house, that they're barely making rent. He shrugged. Doesn't look like it. The footage continued. They walked down the alley, laughing, Linda adjusting her scarf, Frank patting his pockets. Then the man in the baseball cap turned back toward the camera. And smiled. I knew that smile. My knees nearly buckled. Pause it, I said. Rick froze the frame. The face on the screen was older, leaner, but unmistakable. Evan. My husband. Dead for 5 years. I don't remember leaving the basement. I don't remember driving home. I remember sitting on my couch, staring at nothing, while my entire life rearranged itself around a single impossible truth. Evan wasn't dead. He had disappeared. And I had been paying for it. Didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, the paused frame from the security camera burned itself onto the inside of my skull. Evan's face, older, sharper, unmistakably alive, hovered in the darkness like a cruel joke the universe had decided to play on me. Dead men don't age. Dead men don't smile at security cameras. I sat on the couch until dawn, knees pulled to my chest, arms wrapped around myself like I could keep my insides from spilling out. The apartment felt unfamiliar now, like I'd been living inside a lie that had finally cracked open. At 6:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. Linda. I stared at the screen. The name I had saved under Mom suddenly looked obscene. I didn't answer. The phone buzzed again, then again. Finally, I picked up, not because I wanted to hear her voice, but because I wanted proof that it would still sound the same after everything I now knew. Kara, she said, breathless, did you send it, the payment? My throat tightened. I saw him. Silence. Not confusion. Not denial. Silence. I saw Evan, I said, on the security camera. The line went dead. She didn't hang up in a panic. She didn't protest. She simply disconnected. That's when the shock turned into something colder. Anger. I drove across the city without thinking, muscle memory guiding me to the address I'd visited countless times with casseroles and sympathy cards. The small bungalow on the south side looked exactly the same, white siding, trimmed hedges, a porch swing that creaked in the wind. A house paid for by my grief. I didn't knock. I pushed the door open. Kara, Frank's voice broke as he stood up from the kitchen table. Linda froze mid-step, her coffee mug slipping from her fingers and shattering on the tile. And there he was, standing near the hallway. Alive. Real. Evan. For a moment, no one spoke. Then he smiled, the same crooked smile that used to undo me. Hey, he said softly, you weren't supposed to find out like this. Something in me snapped. I grabbed the nearest thing, Frank's wooden chair, and hurled it across the room. It crashed into the wall inches from Evan's head, splintering on impact. You let me mourn you, I screamed. You let me bury you. Linda started crying. Frank sank back into his chair like his bones had finally given up. It was supposed to be temporary, Evan said, just until things cooled down. 5 years, my voice shook. You call that temporary? He ran a hand through his hair. I was in trouble, Kara, real trouble, people I couldn't outrun unless I disappeared. So you made me disappear instead, I laughed, a sharp, broken sound. You erased me and kept collecting my money. Linda sobbed louder. We needed it. You were the only one who could help. I turned on her. You watched me break every month, and you smiled while you cashed my checks. Evan stepped forward. I never wanted you hurt. I pointed at him. You never wanted consequences. The police came quietly. Mrs. Donnelly had already called them. Turns out, watching everything had finally given her a reason to speak. The detectives' eyes scanned the room like predators. Kara could feel the weight of their scrutiny pressing down on her. Every creak of the old floorboards echoed like a judge's gavel. Ms. Fields, one detective said, voice flat, we're aware that you've been sending $200 monthly to the Larson family for the past 5 years. Can you explain the nature of your relationship to them? I clenched my fists. I wanted to scream because I loved him, but the words caught in my throat. Evan stepped forward. It wasn't supposed to be like this, Kara. Don't, just don't, I spat. The detective raised an eyebrow. Mr. Larson, we have evidence that these transactions were knowingly accepted under false pretenses. We need to know why. Evan swallowed hard. I can explain everything. Please just give me a moment. The second detective stepped closer, his face shadowed. Evan, 5 years is a long time to keep a lie. We have reason to believe your disappearance was staged and that Ms. Fields was financially exploited. My stomach churned. Exploited. That word made my chest tighten. 5 years of grieving, of trusting, of giving, exploited. Evan's voice was barely a whisper. I never meant to hurt her. I did what I thought I had to do to keep her safe. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But the anger, the betrayal, the sleepless nights, it all rose up like a tidal wave. Safe, I said, voice breaking. You hid from me, you lied to me, you let me live as a widow while you were alive. And now you expect what? Sympathy. Evan looked down. I don't know what to expect. I needed you to stay safe while I figured out how to come back without putting you in danger. The detectives exchanged a glance, then turned toward me. Ms. Fields, your cooperation will be crucial. We need to piece together the flow of funds and the communication between you and Mr. Larson. Were there ever any threats, any messages indicating coercion? I shook my head, still in shock. No, he never contacted me directly. I just sent the money, every month without fail. I thought it was my duty, my grief, my debt to his family. And now, my throat tightened and I swallowed back tears. Now it's like everything I did was meaningless. One detective scribbled in a notebook. We'll need access to bank records, communications, any emails or letters. This could take some time. I glanced at Evan. His face was pale, almost haunted. He looked like a man who had been carrying the weight of a secret for half a decade, but the damage was done. I realized then, nothing would ever be the same. Not my life, not my grief, not my trust. And yet, a tiny, fragile spark of something else lingered, curiosity. I wanted to know why he had chosen this path, why he had left me in this living nightmare. Evan whispered, almost to himself, I'll show you everything, Kara. Every truth, every lie, every reason. I didn't respond. I wasn't ready. But deep down, a part of me knew I had to face it. Because the truth, however painful, was coming. Kara sat silently in the dimly lit living room, the hum of the old refrigerator filling the gaps between her racing thoughts. The apartment smelled faintly of damp and old wood, a reminder of the city's aging skeleton all around her. Every shadow seemed heavier now, carrying the weight of secrets long buried. She hadn't moved from the chair since the detectives left, though hours had passed. Her hands rested on the table, fingers intertwined, knuckles white. She kept replaying the last conversation with Evan over and over. The man she thought she had known, trusted, had been living a lie. Her phone buzzed suddenly, breaking the heavy silence. It was a message from an unknown number. "Kara, if you want the truth, meet me at the old pier. Midnight, alone." Her heart skipped a beat. Was it Evan? Or someone else? Her mind swirled with warnings and curiosity. Part of her screamed to ignore it. Part of her couldn't resist. Hours later, she wrapped herself in a dark hoodie and stepped out into the cold Chicago night. The streets were nearly empty, save for a few night owls and the occasional taxi passing with a muted engine hum. Her footsteps echoed on the cracked pavement as she made her way to the pier. The pier was a skeleton of rusted metal and creaking wood, stretching into the dark waters of Lake Michigan. Waves lapped quietly, a soft, steady rhythm that seemed almost mocking. She spotted a figure leaning against a post, hood drawn low over his face. "Kara," the voice said, low, hesitant, familiar Evan. "You said you'd show me everything," she said, voice tight, emotions brimming. "I want the truth, Evan. No lies, no excuses, no more games." Evan pushed back his hood, revealing a face marked by years of guilt and sleepless nights. His eyes held a strange mix of fear, regret, and something unspoken. "I've waited so long to tell you this," he whispered. "I didn't just disappear. There were threats, real threats. Your money, the money I took, it was the only way I could keep you safe." Kara laughed bitterly, shaking her head. "Safe? You think being tricked for 5 years is safe? I lived in a nightmare while you hid." I know," he said quickly, almost pleading. "But it was the only way. I tried to come back so many times. Every time something prevented me. They were watching. They were dangerous, Kara. You didn't know and I couldn't tell you. I had to make it look like I was gone. I had to make you trust me from afar." Her eyes narrowed. And the Larson family, were they part of this? Or were they just benefiting from my grief? Evan hesitated, swallowing hard. Some of them knew, yes, but not all. I had to play their part too. I had to make them believe I was dead. Kara, it was a lie to protect you. She took a step back, shaking her head. 5 years, Evan. 5 years of paying them, worrying about them, trusting them. And this is what I get. "I know," he said softly, "and I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know the truth before it was too late." Before Kara could respond, a sudden noise from the pier's end made her jump. Shadows moved. Figures emerged, and the glint of metal caught the moonlight. "You shouldn't be here," one of them said, a voice rough, commanding. Evan's face drained of color. "They found us," he whispered. "They've been watching all along." Kara's heart pounded. The air felt thicker, the night darker. She realized then that the lies, the deception, the money, it wasn't just about betrayal. It was about survival. As the figures closed in, Evan grabbed her hand. "Run," he said, urgency in his eyes. "We can't fight them here, not yet. We need to get somewhere safe." And for the first time in 5 long years, Kara realized that the truth she sought was intertwined with danger she hadn't imagined. The money, the secrets, the lies, it was bigger than both of them. The chase began under the moonlight, the pier groaning under their weight, the waves crashing as if to warn them of the storm ahead. And in Kara's chest, a mixture of fear, anger, and an undeniable spark of hope surged. She didn't know what awaited, but she knew one thing: this night would change everything. The city lights faded behind them as Kara and Evan ran through the narrow alleyways, hearts hammering, breaths sharp in the cold night air. The figures chasing them, shadowy, relentless, were gaining ground, their boots clanging against the wet pavement. "Split up," Evan whispered urgently. "It'll confuse them. Meet me at the old warehouse on Maple Street. Don't look back." Kara hesitated. Her gut screamed not to leave him, but she knew he was right. Without another word, she ducked into a side street, pressing herself against a brick wall, listening to the distant shouts and rapid footsteps. Every nerve in her body screamed danger. She remembered the $200 she had sent month after month, the trust she had placed in strangers, the betrayal she had felt. And now it was all clear. The money, the lies, the deception, it had been a small piece of a much larger, more dangerous puzzle. Meanwhile, Evan led the pursuers on a winding chase, ducking behind dumpsters, slipping into narrow stairwells, and using his knowledge of the city's forgotten paths. He had always known how to navigate the shadows, but tonight, it wasn't just survival. It was about redemption. Kara reached the warehouse first. Its steel doors groaned as she pushed them open, stepping into the darkness. Dust motes danced in the faint moonlight seeping through broken windows. She could hear the water dripping somewhere deep inside, echoing like distant gunfire. Suddenly, Evan appeared from the shadows, eyes wild but relieved. "You made it," he said, voice trembling. "We're not safe yet, but I have something to show you, something that will explain everything." He led her to a hidden office in the corner of the warehouse. There, he opened a locked drawer and pulled out stacks of documents, photographs, and old ledgers. "These," he said, "prove everything. Not just about the money or my disappearance or the Larson family, but about the people who have been manipulating both of us from the start. They've been running an operation, using my supposed death to cover up debts, blackmail, even crimes we didn't know existed." Kara's hands shook as she sifted through the papers. Names, accounts, dates, every page painted a picture of calculated betrayal and corruption. And in the midst of it, one shocking revelation stood out. Her late husband's death hadn't been an accident. It had been orchestrated. Her vision blurred with anger, grief, and disbelief. "All these years," she whispered, voice cracking, "everything I thought I knew, it was a lie." Evan nodded. "I tried to stop them, Kara. That's why I had to disappear. I had to learn their secrets, gather proof. I couldn't risk losing you too." Just then, the warehouse doors banged open. The shadowy figures from the pier had tracked them. Guns raised, voices shouting, footsteps echoing ominously. Kara and Evan exchanged a glance. This was the final confrontation. "You shouldn't have run," one of the men sneered. "Now it's over." Evan stepped in front of Kara. "No, it's over for you," he said, pulling a small flash drive from his pocket. "All your crimes, all your lies recorded, saved, and sent to the authorities. You won't hurt anyone else." A tense standoff ensued. The figures hesitated, realizing their control was slipping. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had tipped off the police. The shadows of power that had haunted Kara for 5 years were finally unraveling. In the chaos, Kara felt a strange sense of liberation. The money she had sent, the sacrifices, the pain, it had all led her here. To truth, to justice, to reclaiming her life. The pursuers were soon arrested, their empire crumbling. The evidence Evan had collected exposed corruption, debt scams, and dangerous lies, freeing not just Kara but countless others who had been unknowingly manipulated. Days later, Kara stood at the edge of Lake Michigan, watching the sunrise. The waves shimmered gold, a stark contrast to the darkness she had endured. Evan stood beside her, not as a shadow from the past, but as a partner in rebuilding a future. 5 years, she said quietly. 5 years of fear, grief, and deception. But also 5 years that brought us here, Evan replied, gently taking her hand. We survived, and now we can finally live. Kara nodded, letting the wind and the light fill her with hope. The past would always be part of her, but it no longer defined her. She had faced betrayal, uncovered truth, and emerged stronger. For the first time in a long time, she felt free. And in that freedom, she realized something powerful. Survival isn't just about enduring the past, it's about reclaiming your future.